My name is Liam. I'm the Customer Success Manager here at Stacker. Really excited to kick off this whole series of webinars around Stacker, where to get started, and really how to build your app. And today, we're focusing in on the very interesting topic of data and database. And really, when I think about Stacker and how to build in Stacker, I think of it in three steps or three layers. I'd say, the first layer of the database layer, second, sort of your pages and your layout, and then thirdly, permissions and who's getting access to that data. So we're starting really at the foundation of an app to build out a database. So what exactly are we going to build today? Today, we're going to build the foundation for a simple sales CRM app. So the premise is really that we've got a number of different salespeople and they're sort of nurturing deals and need to kind of keep track of all of these deals within an app. So we're going to build out the structure, and as I build out the structure, I'm really going to talk through some of the key concepts that I think are really important to understand as you're building in Stacker and more specifically a database. Just as quick disclaimer, we're really focusing on what we call Stacker tables, so just storing data within Stacker. We do have a number of different data sources, and really I think a lot of the concepts that we talk about today will kind of map to those other data sources as well. But I think databases are really important, especially in Stacker, because tables really map to pages, and those pages really map to how your users are going to interact with your app, right? So it's really important to get a very strong foundation to build upon. My sort of bias is always to start with data first and then start to build. There are other approaches, and of course in Stacker you can kind of start building your pages and build fields that way as well. But today we're gonna dig right into data and start building. So what I'm gonna do is show you a few things. Firstly, I'm gonna really show you where we're coming from and where we look to go. So we've got this environment here that we put together for this sales CRM. And really what's inspiring this sales CRM is a Google Sheet, right? So we've got all of this information in a Google Sheet, and we want to convert this into a Stacker app. So what we're going to do first is I'm just going to pull in that data that I've got in my Google Sheet. And this could be a pretty standard workflow for a lot of you, especially if you're starting from scratch or you're moving from an Excel sheet. So I'm going to go into my data view here. It's going to be show all of my tables. And what I want to do is import from a CSV. There's a number of different ways that we can import. But I'm going to do it this way. So pull this in. Just take this data out of here. We'll import. It's going to look at the CSV, pull in all of the columns and the different fields. So Stacker is going to give its best guess as to what this stuff is, right? So we've got this concept of tables and fields, and those really map onto, especially if you're familiar with something like Excel, like columns and rows, right? I think the bit of the twist here would be the types of fields that you've got. So we have a number of different fields, and we're going to get into those today as we go through. And what Stacker is going to do is it's just going to approximate what these fields are. But some may be right, some may be wrong. And so firstly, what I look to do, especially if I'm importing data, is okay, figure out, are these the types that I want? I think what we've got here so far looks good. I might change this value here to a number. And this is just like formatting that you'd have in an Excel sheet where, I obviously want this formatted as a number. These are numbers that are coming through. Same goes for this as well. So I'll actually put this as a percentage instead of a text field. Just looking good. We also have these dates here that for whatever reason didn't get formatted. So I'm going to change that to a date field. And these data types are all really relevant for your users, because if you're thinking about users creating records, we have, a whole form piece of the software. And when you set these data types for date, for example, it's going to affect how those users put information. So if you've got a date field, when users import stuff, you're going to see like a date picker, for example. So it's really about the experience, first your data quality, and then also the experience of your users. So these look pretty good. We've got some single selects here that look fine. We've got team members and then next steps here. Yeah, I think there's a question that's come through. So let's.
I don't know what the etiquette is here. Should I raise my hand?
No.
But someone asked a really good question already, which is, if you pull in data from Airtable, is it considered a stacker table when it's brought in?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's seen as its own data source, and all of the data is treated in a very specific way and specifically to Airtable. So a lot of this work that we're doing here to kind of clean up the data that we've taken in from an Excel file, you wouldn't have to do that in Airtable. The integration is built so that, if you've got a number field in Airtable, that's going to come through exactly as a number field in Stacker. So it's a great question. So, okay, so I'll keep going, and I just want to tease apart a few things, and this really hones in on this idea of like the difference between a spreadsheet and a database. So here we've got this one table that's got a lot of different information. So we've got information about companies, some of the contact information from those companies. We've got some deal information, like what the value of those deals are worth. We've also got interaction dates, like when did we last interact with those companies? And then we've got team members, right? So you could, and stages as well. So you could see all of these as separate objects. And that's really what you try to do in a database, is to pull apart all of these different things that you may have crammed into one sheet, right? And the reason we want to do that is really that every table we have in Stacker is going to represent a page. So if I jump over to my company deals, I can automatically see all of these things that I've imported in. But if we're thinking about an app, I might want to click into a specific thing. Maybe like, maybe I want some more details. Maybe I want to click in on the team member and see some more information. Maybe I want to get some more resolution on these separate things. And generally, when I'm thinking about my table structure, I'm thinking about what are the different objects that I have. So it could be something like customers or orders, applications, so many different things. And in this case, I'd actually pull these apart into a few other fields, or a few other tables, sorry. So firstly, I think what I'd want to create would be we'd want to have a team table, I think, because I think there's more information than just the name of the team member that we'd want. We'd want their email so that those people could actually log in, and maybe there's some other information that we want to store as well. So I'm actually gonna paste from a spreadsheet just to show you what that looks like. So I've got this list of team members that I want to pull in. So I'm just going to copy those. We're going to jump back to wrong spot. We're going to jump back to Stacker here, and I'm going to go paste from spreadsheet. Paste those in. I'm going to call this team members and import. That's looking great. We've got all of our team members there, and already we've got more resolution on like what is a team member as opposed to just a name. Lastly, the other thing I want to kind of tease out of this is stage. And the reason I want to do that is because, and there is an argument that, you could just keep stage as a field in and of itself. However, what I have are these probabilities, and these probabilities are actually linked to a stage. So for example, somebody in the qualified stage is going to have a different probability to close than something in another stage. And I don't want to have to, like, every time I switch somebody to qualified, update their probability. I want those pieces of information to be linked together. So what I'm going to do, I'm also going to grab some of my stage information that I've got here and those probabilities, and I'm going to pull those into my Stacker app. So same thing, I'm just going to paste that information in. And you can see it takes those there. So we're going to call this stages. Cool. So we've got our stages. I'm going to actually change this to a number so that we can work with it. It's great. All right. So now we've already sort of pulled this apart into 3 tables. And I'd argue there's a 4th table, which I'm going to save to the end, but it's going to be around interactions. So we'll take a look at that. And that's actually going to involve a different data source. So what we need to do next, now that we've done that, we've added our tables and we've done some formatting. What we want to do is create links between these different tables. And this is what the relational database structure is all about. And this is really what's going to allow us, from a page perspective, for our users to click on certain things, like click on a team member and then jump into that profile. I think this kind of is easier to understand when I just show. So I'm going to jump right into it. Firstly, we're going to establish a link between deals and team members. So we need to replace this single select with these. We have to make some connection to these people here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a field. I'm going to call this team member link. And you'll notice we've got a couple options. So 3 options, actually. We have link to another record, link to multiple records, and then an automatic link. In this case, it's a one-to-one relationship. One deal is owned by one person. So I'm just going to go link to another record. If there were multiple people, I could do multiple records. So I'm going to link to our team members, create that field. Now what you'll notice is we've got a drop down, and these are all of the users that we have in our team members table. So I'm just going to go ahead and just manually assign those according to what we have in that single select. Right. Michael, and we're going to get rid of this one, which we don't need anymore. Now what you'll notice, if you jump over to team members, we get the inverse relationship. So we can see that, for all of these team members, we can see the deals that they're linked to. So it's kind of like pulling your data apart and looking at it in a 2-dimensional way as opposed to like a flat way. So we're going to continue on. Let's create another link. We want to create a link between stages. So let's see. I'm going to do that again. We'll call this stage link. Again, it's a one-to-one relationship. So we're just going to go link to another record. We'll do stages, create that field. And I'm going to just move this over. You can move your columns around like that. We'll go qualified, contacted, lost, one, and lead. So we no longer need this one. So we're going to pull that out. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to pull in, and this is the great thing about links, we want to pull in information that lives in another table. So as I mentioned, we've got this probability field here, and these aren't even the right values that are here, but we want to pull the probability information from stages into our deals so that we can calculate some sort of like an expected revenue against that probability. So what we want to do, now that we've got this connection, if we jump over here, we can see that the companies are all listed there. We can create what's called a lookup field. So I could go probability. We'll just call it a lookup. And this is going to be super similar to something like a VLOOKUP if you've used Excel or used Google Sheets. We're going to link it back to stage and select the field that we want to look up for each value. We're going to create that field. And you can see that it's just pulled in those values. And as we change them, those values are going to change without us having to update them. So this is like the magic of a relational database. So instead of having to like go and update stuff manually, you've now created in a way where it's just doing it itself. Next thing we want to do, based on this value, we want to calculate like an expected revenue against these probabilities. So what we can do to do that is create a formula field. I'm going to select formula. There's a number of different functions that you can use here, and you can reference the fields that you have in tables. I'm obviously not going to go through all of them, but they're very similar to Excel and Google Sheet formulas. So in this case, what we want to do, we want to take our probability and then just times that by our value. Create that field. And now we've got another calculated value here. And we can switch this stuff around. It's really fun to kind of like, if you put this into lead, you can see that all these calculations change. Those are things I find cool. So okay, so we've got our expected revenue, which is great. There's a couple other fields I want to add about these deals. So I, as a sales manager, I really want to know who is like updating and changing these deals. So we have a few fields which are audit fields. So these will tell you information about, people that have done anything to them or created them. So for example, I can have a created last modified time, which is really cool. So we'll just call this last modified. And these are automatically calculated values. There's nothing that you need to maintain them. Also, let's do a modified by. So we could see who has actually modified that record. They're all going to be me because I imported them all. But once you get users in there and changing things, you'll be able to see that. So the other table we're going to do is around Google Sheets. But before we do that, we're going to jump into something that we call roll-ups, also linked to this whole linking of records. And something that I think is really cool. So what we want to do is we want to jump into team members. And there's some more information we want to know about these team members and how they're interacting with their deals. So firstly, we want to know how many deals they have. Of course, we can look at these and say, okay, Donna has 2, Michael has 1, Thomas has 2. Or what we could do is we could create a count of deals, and we'll use a roll-up. And a roll-up is basically takes any records that are linked to something and then does an aggregate function. So a sum, an average, a count. This is something that you'd like. If you were in Excel, you'd probably be using something like a count if or a sum if. But this is really how it works more in the database model. So we're going to go to company deals. That's what we want to roll up. Firstly, we just want the number of related records. We're going to count those. That's looking good. I want to get a sum of those deals too. So let's say sum of deals. And we'll go again a roll up. Company deals. Sum those. And the value. So now those are summed across all of our users here. And then I also just want like an average deal size. This is also going to be a roll up. And we're going to just use average and value. So like all of these things are things that, you would have had to slave over a Google Sheets formula to do. But, within this model, you can kind of do within a few clicks. So I want to jump over to stages and do a few other roll-ups. So we want to get pipeline value for each of these stages. So we
Just
can
as
roll.
a time check, Liam, if we want to have a couple of minutes for questions, you've probably got about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Works for
Okay.
you?
Okay. So perhaps, you probably get the roll-ups, and what we're going to do, we're going to jump into connecting a Google Sheet to our data. And within the story that we're telling, all of our sales people basically, they book their meetings using a booker like Calendly. All of those Calendly bookings go into a Google Sheet. And what we want to do is we want to take those bookings and have them automatically be assigned to company deals and assigned to team members so that we can count meetings booked. And we can also see like the meetings that are assigned to any companies or deals. So what we're going to do is we're going to firstly add a new data source. And there's a number of different data sources. We're going to go with Google Sheets. So I'm just going to connect to my Google Sheet account. And let's select the sheet that we want. So it's the bookings sheet. Now Stacker is connecting to Google Sheets and then assigning each row in your Google Sheet a unique ID that we'll use to then manage those records. So we've done that. And now that we've connected, we should be able to jump into our data and we can see all of these fields here. So I'll show you sort of what that looks like from the Google Sheets side. So you'll see that there's this extra column that's added. Obviously, don't touch this. We need this to understand what these rows are. But jumping back, what we want to do is quickly create some links, very similar to what we were doing, but these are called automatic links. And these will take the information and map a key value. So for example, we've got the email address of the team member, and I can match that to the email that we have on the actual team member table. So what I'm going to do is quickly do that. So we're going to go add a field. We'll call it team member. And we'll look for automatic link. And we want to link it to team members. And so it's a simple mapping, right? So we're going to take the team member email and then map it to this email. It's one to many. We're going to create that field. And I'm just going to refresh here. Make sure that I may have done this incorrectly. Let me see here.
These always take me a couple of shots to get set up, or in fact 3 or 4 goes, because they can be pretty fun.
Yeah, so let's try this.
Just for the audience, so we've got a few minutes left, so if you do have any questions, like we will take time to answer them, but just it would be good to get them now. If you could ask them in the chat or in the Q&A function, that would be really awesome.
All right, let's see if I can do this from the other end of this. And if we can't get this, I may have to follow up with you all and maybe give you a demo or something. Let me quickly see here. All right, so we'll do this automatic link. We want to connect it back to our bookings, email, team member, create that field. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's pulling through. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. So you can see that it's pulled through all the names of the, saved. So it's pulled through all of these names here. And if we go back to our Stacker tables, we can actually then, count those things. If we wanted to count bookings that have been that have been linked. If we wanted to, count meetings against companies, we could do that as well. And the great thing about that integration is that, as new records are added to that Google Sheet, Stacker will just automatically, match those things up. So I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I hope you enjoyed it, really taking you from a spreadsheet to a database structure. So we will leave the 120 seconds here for questions if there are any.
Amazing. Look at what you've built in the space of like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And next time we'll be able to turn this into, an actual app for your users to use as well. So thank you. And so there's actually a question about, it's more general about, oh, I've lost my chat, but about whether or not we offer one-on-one training, because we do have our Stacker experts, but that isn't free. So there's Stacker experts who are people who we know and trust who can build stuff, and I'm sure they would be up for doing training. A lot of them do. I'm going to find a link for that. But I think in terms of sort of one-on-one training right now from the team, I don't know if that's an option.
Yeah, so we do have some support options in product where you can book like a very short one-on-one. Those, of course, are just limited based on resource. But if it's a simple, like asking a few questions, we can definitely facilitate that type of a meeting.
Yeah, email me afterwards, Matt, and we'll see if we can help you out a bit there. And yeah, I've shared a link to the Stacker experts as well. But one thing I would always say is, we do have an active community in Slack and on our forums. And if you're ever needing kind of help, if you ever get stuck and hit a roadblock, they're always happy to help as well. I hang out there a lot and always happy to kind of look at any issue that you're facing. But yeah, I think unless we have any more questions, we'll call it at time. But join us next week, where Liam is going to show us how to take all of that data and turn it into something beautiful that is usable by your users. Rather than just having to look at a spreadsheet all day, you can now look at an app that displays that data in a sort of meaningful way. So thanks to everyone for joining, and thank you so much, Liam, for that tour de force of Stacker. And
my pleasure.
Hopefully we'll see you all next week. All right, bye for now.
See you later.